What's up? I'm Cool Jim, and as you can see, I'm a pretty cool guy. So, as your neighborhood cool guy, let me tell you something. The Wii was pretty cool. What? You need proof that I'm a cool guy? Well, let me just tell you one thing. I drink my strawberry milk without a straw, straight from the glass. Just like that. And what's that annoying music I keep hearing? Where is that coming from? The Nintendo Wii. As popular as it is, I still find it to be often overlooked by more serious gamers as this E for everyone, kid-friendly, motion-controlling riddled game console. And it's understandable that it ended up getting this reputation given its insanely wide target audience. I mean, just take a look at some of the top-selling games on the platform and it's obvious to what type of games most players were exposed to. The vast majority of these are leaning to the more casual side or are even demo-esque, especially the Wii series. There's no doubt these numbers have been inflated due to so-called back-end syndrome. However, I think that just doubles down on the fact that those games represented the Wii. They came with the system itself, they told you what to expect from the console. And for the vast majority of the world, Wii Sports was the Wii. But Dries, you say, don't you think it's fair to say that on every platform the top selling games are more casual leaning ones? I mean, it would only make sense, right? These have a lot wider appeal. So, okay, maybe you're right. Let's check out some of the top selling games on the PS3. After looking at this list, there's simply no doubt the Wii just had a lot more casual leaning audience. But is that all the Wii was? I don't believe so. So let's talk about some of the reasons why the console ended up getting this perception and talk about some great games. Mario games have long been the benchmark for any Nintendo console. It sets the bar for this generation, tells you what to expect. On the NES we got the original Super Mario Bros. Groundbreaking, revitalizing a dead industry. On the SNES we got Super Mario World, showcasing the graphical leap from the NES to the SNES. And it introduced a world map, making it feel like one big, cohesive adventure. On the Game Boy we got Super Mario Land, proving to us that true handheld gaming was finally here. A true Super Mario entry, on the go. Super Mario 64 is arguably the most important 3D game of all time, setting the standard for millions of games that followed. On the GameCube we got Sunshine, a wackier, different kind of adventure. Here Mario receives a water-powered jetpack, proving to us the GameCube wasn't afraid to change things up and still try to innovate. So when the Wii was announced, I think everybody asked themselves, what 3D Mario game will we get next? And the answer to that was, of course, Mario Galaxy. Perhaps the most grandiose, most epic feeling Mario game ever, with bombastic orchestrated music that makes you just want to leap out of your chair and go on an adventure. Galaxy has some of the best level design ever seen in gaming. It never gets stale either. Before you get tired of one idea, it's already thrown 10 new ones at you. It shows that the developers had so much inspiration, so much even we got a sequel, because they just had too much of it for simple DLC. all of this makes it so that Mario Galaxy is truly one of my favorite games of all time. However, if you look at what Galaxy represents, it's a lot more linear, which could be seen as a move to cater to the more casual audience. And artistically it looks incredible, the way the planets look, the life the Lumas breathe into the game, the vast depths of space in the background all makes for one beautiful game. But on the graphical side, it's nothing impressive. It basically looks like a really good GameCube game, which makes sense because that's what the Wii is, a really souped up GameCube. And the fact that it's barely faster than a GameCube isn't all that exciting, especially if you compare it to the PS3 or the 360, which both felt like big leaps from the prior generation. So how was Nintendo trying to convince you to buy what's basically a last gen system? The controller, of course. There was truly nothing out there like the Wiimote. The Wii wasn't the first one to try out motion controlled gaming. The NES had as soon as 1989 the Power Glove, and the PS2 had the iToy, which is basically a prehistoric version of Xbox Kinect. However, I think it's fair to say that the Wii was the first one that did a truly decent job of it. And what, you're gonna complain the Wii isn't hardcore? Come on, you could choke a person with this controller. Can't see Xbox or PlayStation doing that. After the commercial failure that the GameCube was, Nintendo's new strategy was to expand their market into an unexplored segment, the casuals. This was their so-called Blue Ocean strategy. Note that I specifically said expand, not solely focus on. They didn't want to stop competing with Sony and Microsoft, they simply wanted to expand the gaming market, and I think this is easily seen in the earlier commercials for the Wii, where they still show a lot of footage of Metroid Prime and the likes. As later into the generation they just start focusing more and more onto this larger casual audience. So let's take a look at the launch lineup. We've got some amazing games here. We've got Call of Duty 3, Excite Trucks, an incredibly fun racing game that's slightly more skill based than Mario Kart. Need for Speed Carbon, Rayman Raving Rabbids, Red Steel, a FPS with swordplay game developed by Ubisoft that sadly ended up being pretty disappointing. However, its sequel was lauded for its great implementation of vMotion Plus and is still beloved by many to this day. Trauma Center Second Opinion, a remake of a beloved JRPG developed by Atlus for the DS. And The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, a return to form for the series, to the darker vibes of Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask after the harsh backlash on the Wind Waker. It's rare for Nintendo to listen, but in this case they actually did. They made the exact game many fans had wanted, and it's definitely a good one. The biggest issue with this game is that it was a dual release on both the GameCube and the Wii, and sadly, the Wii is the worst version. They added tacky, clunky, and unnecessary motion controls to the game. Now this would be fine if it was just an option and you could plug in your GameCube controller and use that instead. Sadly, they didn't allow this, and aside from aiming your bow, it's the inferior control scheme. The motion controls are nearly as polished as they would later become in Skyward Sword, and often just mistakes inputs. The game also clearly wasn't designed with this in mind. They had to mirror the whole game world so Link would be right-handed compared to being his usual lefty in the GameCube version. On top of that, the Wii didn't have a second analog stick, so you had no camera control like in the GameCube version, and were left to Z targeting. This really feels like a GameCube game disguised as a Wii game. Nonetheless, I do feel like it shows Nintendo's mindset at this point in time. They were willing to make grittier games, and Twilight Princess is still an absolutely incredible game, but please don't play the Wii version. All in all, not a bad launch lineup, but also nothing insane. It would have felt a lot more special if Twilight Princess was exclusive to the Wii. Looking back, it actually reminds me of the Switch launch. A big Zelda game that's been anticipated for years, dual releasing on both current gen and last gen. Except on the Switch, it was actually the best version. But let's be fair, the Wii still had some extra great games in Trauma Center, Second Opinion, Excite Trucks, and having a Call of Duty on a Nintendo platform is always welcome, even if it is a downgraded experience compared to PS3 or 360. So let's take a look at some of the best exclusives on the Wii. Alright, Galaxy 1 and 2. I'm not gonna say much about this one. I've already said I love them. I could talk about these games for hours, but that's not the point of this video, and I think most of you guys have already heard and probably played these titles. Super Smash Bros. Brawl. Sakurai and his team truly outdid themselves here. In terms of single player content, it's a massive step up from Melee, having the Subspace Emissary mode that's around 10 hours long, featuring a ton of high quality cutscenes, and it's awesome to see these legendary game characters interact more with each other. It's also the first Smash to introduce non-Nintendo characters. Sonic and Solid Snake, two truly worthy additions. I do think it's a little less suited to competitive play than Melee, since it's way slower paced, and the removal of wave dashing was pretty disappointing. However, definitely still a title worth checking out for Subspace Emissary alone. Metroid Prime 3 is a truly worthy sequel to the legendary Prime series that got its start on the GameCube, finishing a story that's been slowly building up over these 3 games and actually making great use of the Wiimote. This time around we still control Samus by using the analog stick on the nunchuck, however, we don't need to stop to aim or overly rely on the lock-on targeting. We can freely aim using the pointer functionality of the Wiimote. It turned out to be such an improvement that Nintendo ended up re-releasing the whole trilogy for the Wii with updated controls. And then we got another Metroid game. Other M. Certainly a lot more controversial, and while I haven't had the chance to play it yet, it seems to me that many players enjoyed the gameplay but that the story undermined a lot of Samus's character. And the next game we're gonna take a look at is an M-rated exclusive for the Wii. It's so violent it even ended up coming with this card. Unleash Ultra Violence. Tired of routine violence, hardcore violence getting a little old? Then join us and raise your game to the level of Ultra Violence. Yeah, definitely not what you'd expect. And what's even more unlikely is that it's actually pretty darn good. Platinum Games gave us an insanely over-the-top violent old-school beat-em-up but with a few standout features in Mad World. You're not just trying to make it through the levels, but trying to amass as many points as possible. You do this by obliterating foes in the most horrible ways imaginable. First, you put a tire around their body so they can't fight back. Then you impale them with a traffic sign through their heads to finally end up splitting them in half by slamming a garbage container shut with Hulk-like strength. All of this with a super unique black and white comic book style which only makes the red blood stand out more. The less realistic art style allows the Wii to run the game with ease and truly made this game age like a fine wine. There are motion controls in the game. You mostly swing to attack, use your chainsaw, or throw enemies around the map. By shaking the nunchuck, you do a backward somersault, and there are other various less common implementations. At first, I thought this was going to get annoying quick, but to my surprise, it held up quite well. The game is more oriented to shorter sessions anyway, so they never ended up getting on my nerves, and some of them even added to the experience. For example, when you're swinging the Wiimote around while your character is doing the same thing with an enemy, makes it all the sillier. All in all, definitely a fine addition to the library and a game worth checking out. This shovelware-ass looking game is an unlikely treasure that's truly destined to be glanced over by millions, including myself at first. This game defies first impressions with its charming art style reminiscent of The Wind Waker, featuring a young boy and his flying monkey companion on a quest to become pirates. The game's world is expansive, offering a variety of landscapes from icy caverns and lush jungles to ancient ruins, providing a rich backdrop for its adventures. And the gameplay truly stands out, being a point-and-click adventure game. Yeah, how many of those are still being made? And it's a 3D one at that. Players don't directly control Zack, instead they interact with the environment to solve puzzles and advance through levels. It really ends up giving me a similar vibe to the Legend of Zelda games, having these dungeon-esque levels combined with the sense of adventure. Although the actual puzzles and the gameplay do play out quite a bit differently. Nonetheless, I don't know what Capcom was thinking with this generic box art and the title. Perhaps they spent every brain cell thinking of how to make the game amazing. In terms of 2D platformers on the Wii, I think pretty much everyone has played New Super Mario Bros. Or if you haven't played the Wii one, you've probably played one of the gazillion other ones, and let's be honest, they're more or less the same thing. But it's apparent a lot less people have played its better counterpart, DKC Returns. Instead of bland generic floating blocks and backgrounds, we have much better integration of the world into the game. It's not uncommon for objects in the background to interact with the game, and every obstacle makes sense in a jungle setting. DK is a lot heavier feeling than Mario in its platforming, and on this I could go either way. Both are great, but DK offers more variety by switching the platforming up by minecart levels or riding whales. The motion controls in this one aren't great, however. They're obtrusive, annoying and unnecessary. You could play the 3DS port if you absolutely don't want to deal with them, but then you're limited to 30 FPS, and to me it's worth to just suck it up and play the Wii version. I adore Excitebots. I remember playing this game a ton in my early years, but never finding it again after selling my Wii. This was to thank for the fact that it's a North America exclusive, and I live in Europe. I thankfully got to play it because I had a modded Wii. This is one of the most creative racing games I've ever played. It's honestly a match for Mario Kart in my book. The cars are all themed around insects and you can swing from jungle bars, glide, collect and use items. It's kind of like Mario Kart 7 before Mario Kart 7, but the game still has merit to this day. Excite Trucks is funnily one that I never really played until this video, since this one wasn't exclusive to North America. From the box art, it looked a lot more generic to me and didn't really catch my eye. But after taking a look at it, it's definitely not generic, but nothing super special either. It kind of feels like Excitebots Lite. It's really just a solid arcade racer with lots of jumps and a not super fleshed out trick system. What is it? The goal? How? Did it work? Operation Rainfall concerned 3 JRPGs that released towards the latter end of the Wii's life, that did not release in the US. The operation's goal was to bring these games to the States. Luckily I, as a European, had easier access to these games. Still doesn't make up for Paul being 50Hz though. Being completely honest with you, I did not play these games back in the day as I was a 7-year-old, and a JRPG completely in English was a bit of a stretch for me back then. However, I did end up playing at least some of these games later, so let's take a look at them. Let's start off with the most popular one of the three, Xenoblade Chronicles, a really ambitious open world game for the Wii. We find ourselves in a world that's been built upon the Bionis and the Mechonis, two giant beings, one being a mech and the other a natural one. It's super cool that you're actually on these giant beings, so you'll travel from the knee to the head. A truly unique and fun concept. Gameplay wise, many people seem to love it, but for me it's a bit repetitive. Then again, I'm not known to love RPGs. You just end up repeating a lot of the same motions. Position yourself behind an enemy, do this attack, move to the side, do the other attack. You don't have much room for creativity and the side quests are insanely bland. The story did grab me though. From the first few hours I started sympathizing with these characters and hating the Mechonis. If you're a fan of RPGs, this is definitely one worth checking out, but I'd get the Switch remaster. I guess Operation Rainfall was a success for this title alone, as it went on to have 3 more games in the series so far. Pandora's Tower is a game I actually haven't beaten yet, but seems a lot more up my alley so far. You need to conquer a fortress called the 13 Towers that's suspended above a ravine on your quest to cure your lover Elena from a curse. There is a countdown on the game so that Elena will die if you don't succeed within the time frame. The gameplay is heavily focused on puzzle solving within the dungeons and all around a great time. What really sold me on this game though is the timer aspect. It really adds a sense of urgency to the story I haven't felt since Majora's Mask. It's also never been re-released on another platform, so it's definitely worth digging up your Wii from between the couch cushions for this one. And the last game is one I've yet to play, so all I can really give you is based on other reviews. The last story revolves around a group of mercenaries led by Zale, seeking a better life in the Empire of Lazulis. Their adventure becomes deeply intertwined with the fate of the island as they uncover a conspiracy that threatens the realm. The game combines elements of strategy, action and role-playing, set within a rich narrative that explores themes of loyalty, love and the clash between tradition and progress. The game sets itself apart with a more personal, character-driven narrative and innovative real-time battle system that emphasizes strategy and positioning. The game's setting, a vibrant and detailed city with a strong sense of atmosphere, adds depth to the exploration and interaction aspects. While it may have some technical limitations, its strength in story and gameplay mechanics makes it a standout title for RPG enthusiasts looking for something different. And last but not least, WarioWare's smooth moves. I absolutely love this game, it's got the exact stupid wacky humor I live for. If you've never played a WarioWare before, it's essentially a collection of micro games that each last seconds. In this one they all make creative use of the Wiimote by using multiple stances, some of which make sense and some of them are just kinda weird, but that's what makes this title so much fun. It features a story mode with some short but silly cutscenes as it slowly introduces you to more and more forms. Aside from that, it's got quite a few side modes, although most of them are essentially the same thing: WarioWare. Playing this with friends has made this one of the highlights of the Wii library for me. It recently got a spiritual successor on the Switch, but to me none of them will live up to this one. The GameCube is often considered the cream of the crop by many Nintendo fans, and whilst the Wii might not quite reach those heights, it's not as far off as is often thought. We got a lot of sequels to games that got their start on GameCube, and a few amazing original titles as well. And if all of that still isn't enough for you, the Wii is also the only console that allows you to use your controller as a gun.